Welcome to the Zandbergen Report, where wealth strategies and investment wisdom collide, featuring your distinguished host and certified financial planner, Bart Zandbergen.
Welcome to the Zandbergen Report, a showcase for wealth strategies and investment wisdom that's essential for our revolving world. Today, Paul, it's not wealth strategies.
It's something wealthier than that. It's the wealth of the soul.
Wealth of the soul.
I like that.
Very, very good. And it may, actually, we could even call it wisdom of the soul.
Yeah, I like
Maybe
that too.
wisdom by the end.
Well, everybody, we're so excited to be here. We have a full house, and today is our annual holiday wine pairing show.
Ooh.
So in order to help with this show, we have got a full crew.
And, wait, can I just open the door a little bit because there's a lot of people out there. See, they're all...
We need a full
They're all
breakdown
excited.
here for sure.
That's right. So we have, of course, in studio our engineer Paul. We have my partner in crime, Letitia Berbaum, and our once-a-year annual show-up only for the wine tasting show.
I mean, of course, every now and again, a publicist needs a glass of wine.
That's
And
right.
when you say, "Hey, Paula, I have wine," I say, "What time?" And I am there.
Can I tell you something funny here before we start here? I was a publicist for 20 years, celebrities, whatnot, and only thing you could get a publicist to show up for was free food, free booze.
It's
You say free
terrible.
food,
They get a bad rep. That is not.
they will show
I
up
will just-
anywhere. Free food, free booze.
Terrible. That's old generation. This is new generation, Paul. New generation.
When the movie studios wanted to get it to come out, it was free booze and free food.
Sterling
we showed up.
PR does things differently.
Okay, all right.
However, I will never miss this annual wine tasting. Will not happen.
Perfect. All right, let's get this show rolling. We have got wine here on the table. It is open.
Walk us through what you got first. Give a little plug to everybody here, and then you can start talking about it.
So you know what? I am going to plug those as we get into it because there's a method to my madness.
There's a method,
Paul.
all right. So tell us first a little background. For those who've been living under a rock, you know a little bit about wine.
Yeah, I would say so.
More than a little
One way
bit.
to put it.
So I have had some training.
Real training, serious training.
Some would call it excessive or obsessive training.
Yes.
But at the end, I have accomplished something called a certified sommelier, and that is through an organization called the Court of Masters. So there are technically 4 levels. There's a level 1, which just gives you some basic training. A level 2, you're then able to call yourself a certified sommelier. And then there's levels 3 and 4, an advanced, and then a master, which if anyone has seen the documentary called Somm, S-O-M-M, it actually tracks a number of individuals on their path to becoming master sommeliers, of which the current count, I think, is 199 in the entire
That's what I
world.
said, 200,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
In the entire
Wow,
world.
that's neat.
So
Yeah.
why is this so hard, even at a certified level, to get certified? What is so? This isn't just a weekend course you take somewhere here.
Correct. This was years of training, so much so that I don't remember if I've shared this online before, but on the last day, there was 2 days left of my training, and so I had tests scheduled for Monday, and I had, first of all, let me back up to say what you need to do in order to pass the test is you have to know basically every wine in the world, where it's from.
Like really? I mean, seriously, yeah.
The history of wine. You need to be able to taste the wine and determine what the wine is, and then you have to be able to properly serve wine.
And do you do blind tastings like they do at the master level? Do they just give you wine and you have to know what that is and spot on what year, where it comes from, everything?
Yes, 8 in the morning. So
8 in the morning, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
first thing.
And how many do they give you at the certified? I know it gets tougher as you go up, but even at a certified level, how many do they present you?
So 1 white and 1 red.
And I'm just going to bring you a white
Just
wine,
one.
and you got to know not only varietal, it's a Chardonnay or whatever,
Correct.
and you got to know winery,
You have to know region,
okay,
and then vintage.
vintage.
Yeah.
What year? Like this is an 88
Correct.
or something.
Correct.
Because it does vary that much. Now, how in the world could any of us mere mortals ever hope to tell? I could tell it's a Chardonnay. I might even have some little more knowledge than that, but I wouldn't know if it's an 88 or a 98 or whatever. I know there's differences, but I'm not that sophisticated to tell.
Yeah, so I'm not going to tell you all of my secrets, but what I
okay.
will say, there is a process, and the Court of Masters teaches you it's called deductive tasting. So you start out very high level, if you're looking at a funnel, and you would say, okay, obviously, is it red or white? It's white.
Yeah.
So now we're going down the white path. And then you would say, from there's a visual part, and then there's a smell part, and then there's a taste part. Mm-hmm. And through the deductive tasting process, it's a process of elimination. And the first big delimiter is this old world or is this new world? Mm. And by old world, just to make it simple, it's Europe, and new world is, to make it simple, anything but Europe. So everything North America, Australia, South Africa.
That's a big world, though. I mean, how many wineries in California alone? There's got to be thousands?
Probably close to 1,000. There's AVAs, which are American viticular areas. There was a lot. So in preparation for that, in the last couple of days, final studies are on, and I used our bedroom and our bed as my work zone. So I had maps laid out, iPads, flashcards, everything going on. And this is slightly embarrassing, but also very funny. Well, at least it was funny for me, not so much for my wife. As she came in, 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, my test was the next morning, and she had like tears running down her eyes. And I'm like, honey, what's wrong? And now, remember, I'd been up since like 5 in the morning, and I'd been studying since. And she said, are you having an affair?
Oh, no.
Because only that could explain this kind of obsession.
Yeah, this behavior.
Yeah.
So I said, can I get back to you tomorrow after?
Can we argue tomorrow after I...
Current affair is with studying.
Yeah.
Outside of that, no.
So then wake up the next morning. This particular, once a year, they hold it at the Montage in Laguna Beach, which is near where we live. And one of the things that I never do in test taking is I stop studying around 6 o'clock the night before, and I don't do anything more. It's time to relax and just let everything sink in.
Right.
So that morning, I had decided, I wasn't studying, but I was going to do one last run on wine service. Now, this is from a guy who his entire life has never worked in the service industry.
Have you ever been a waiter? Or?
No waiter, no bar, no host, no nothing. But I had practice knowing that this was part of the test.
Which is how to present it and how to pour it and how to carry it, how to open it. And
how to open, pour, communicate, answer questions, serve on the right side properly. So I had the glasses on the tray. First thing I did was knock one glass over, which knocked over every glass and bottle and preparation. So Tina was great to say, okay, you got that out of your system. You're good now. So
there you go.
So good.
Yeah, which was. So that was a grueling, it's an all day. The 8 o'clock is the wine tasting. And then you go from there, small break, and then you go to, it's about 200 questions, essay, multiple choice, etc. of, again, questions about wine in the entire world, small lunch break, and then you break up individually, and there's 4 master sommeliers around a big room in the Montage, and you then are serving this master sommelier and his 3 imaginary friends, his or her 3 imaginary friends, as he dictates what each one is having, and will ask, hey, so-and-so is having this, what do you recommend as an aperitif, and then how about for the salad course, and then we're thinking about having this, and he's having that, all while you're trying to properly open a wine in front of a master sommelier, which is no pressure.
No pressure.
And so what's the pass rate? Pretty low.
It's about 19%, actually.
Oh,
1 out of 5. 1 out of 5 passes assessed after all that.
Yeah. So that was a day of celebration to have that beyond. And then when I actually...
Where's the confetti, Paul? You have all these great sounds.
What do you think of that, folks? They're still excited out there, yeah.
And about a week later, just to kind of finish up, and I'm going to leave Tina alone, I thought, honey, you know what? I've kind of been thinking about maybe doing the advanced sommelier.
Oh, no.
Really?
She slapped you upside the head, yeah.
Right. I'm just going to leave it at that. And
I think you should just enjoy this one.
Yeah, I'm clearly not an advanced sommelier at this point. But just to kind of finish up on the training, because sometimes there is some confusion, that's the most, I think, popular or most well-known is the certified sommelier. But the other courses I was taking concurrently, one, because I'm obsessive-compulsive, and 2, because they were actually really good training to get to my ultimate goal, which was a certified sommelier. One is called the WSET, or Wine Spirits Education Trust.
What's that?
It's located in London, England, and it's a foundation or a university that teaches not only wine, but spirits and all sorts of alcohol history.
Did you go there?
So
Did you take the courses?
sadly, I didn't have to go to London. That would have been
Sadly.
nice. But there is actually the master sommelier, who was one of the trainers for the Court of Masters, also is in a way up on the WSET. So he was teaching courses that I went in person.
Oh, neat.
So that was very, very helpful. That was a couple of years. I haven't gone through the beginning, intermediate, and advanced, and I finished that. And then just because there was one thing left undone, and it was the Certified Specialist of Wine offered by the Society of Wine Educators.
You need to get that.
I thought, well, there's one thing left. How can I not?
Right?
Check every
When
box.
did you do that?
That was about 2 weeks before I sat for the Certified
Are
Sommelier.
you kidding me? 2 weeks before?
Yeah.
Well, no wonder Tina thought this. Oh, my God.
Because nobody could be that into anything. This has to be a cover for
And this
something.
is a hobby.
Yeah, hobby.
Oh, my gosh.
And which is so interesting because to date, definitely the Certified Sommelier, harder than any certification, and Letitia and I share like certified financial planner training and my divorce training and our securities license, all very hard, all which makes us money. To date, not one penny have I made. That's all.
Yeah,
Not
right.
one penny.
Right, it
Enjoyed
really
it?
is an
100%,
obsession.
right?
Right?
Enjoyed
Yeah.
100%. All right. So,
But my favorite part is when we go to an event and they have food, and then you'll say, Tish, you got to try this one. Or we're getting ready to have a meal, and then you go try this with that, and all of a sudden
It comes
the-
alive.
The
Yeah.
food tastes completely different. It's like magic for me.
'Cause
So
it is
thank you.
Because it is chemistry,
enjoy
after
it.
all. It is
Yeah.
chemistry of how
Yeah.
these things interact with one another. Now,
Yeah.
the thing I never asked you before is, so once you pass this, how does anybody know? Do you have a secret handshake? There's a little card?
You
little,
have a publicist. That's what
well,
happens.
yeah.
That's right.
You know, in the military, they have these challenge coins. If you're in the Green Beret or something, you get to pull it out and something here. You know, what is it that they give you? How do you? Could I just say I'm a master sommelier? I could.
You have a card, right?
So I have
should borrow
cards that
this
say
card.
I'm a certified sommelier. I have a certificate, but other than that, it's a somewhat of a small world, and so
They
most
know.
of the time when we go places, either with my wife or if I'm with Tish somewhere, they kind of already know, so we kind of get pretty cool treatment.
That's
if
so
this,
fun.
So if this career doesn't work out, eventually you can just become a wine master here and travel the world. And
Yeah, 27 years of it. Yeah, financial advisor thing doesn't work out. I've
He's
got.
not leaving anytime soon, Paul. So don't get too excited. I enjoy this being his side hobby.
that's right.
All right, so what I'm
start
pouring,
us off here.
Yeah, what I'm pouring now, and there's a reason I'm pouring this now. Not only is it would be nice for the holidays, but as my master sommelier told me, this happens to be a Riesling, a dry Riesling,
Okay, I'm going to hold it to the camera so you guys can take a look.
and it happens to be from the Santa Ynez Valley in California. The winemaker is Fess Parker. But a Riesling is what you drink during the day while you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, for
During
wine
the
for
day.
dinner.
So it's your thinking wine.
This
This
is
is
your
your thinking
thinking
Got
wine.
it. Okay,
Hey, I really
thinking
like that. I
wine.
think I might need this in the office when I need to think extra.
All right, so
Yeah,
give
I
us
think I need
give us
thinking
the little
wine.
rundown. First of all, you
Thinking
didn't
wine.
hold it by the base like so many wine snobs do.
Well,
here.
I'm not. Oh,
Some people
the
hold it at the
glass.
base, and then I can't show it on. Do you don't do that? Do you grab it by the stem and do
Yeah,
all
I
Bart,
think
show us
it's-
how do we hold the glass?
It's, so the basic thing is you don't, especially white wine, you don't want to hold it by the glass for anyone who's watching, because that will change the temperature of the wine. Obviously, your body's warmer than a chilled white
heats it
wine.
up ever so little, right?
Can we also talk about the glasses for a second before you go into
Oh,
the
wow.
wine?
Yeah,
because
that's
I learned something from you, and I thought that was so fantastic
Each wine has a glass, really.
on the glasses. No, but can you share a little bit about?
Yeah, I came
Glass?
so close to bringing varietal specific glasses today, but
I thought you
and
would.
Of course, Tish would call you out.
I came this close, but for two reasons. One, I'm like, they're really going to think I've completely lost my mind. So that was one
no,
reason. That's one reason I
you're
did it.
very thorough.
And the second is I just only had so many shoulders and bags. I didn't have
True.
for 4
Yeah.
glasses. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the most general glass I could. But to that point, being one of the world's largest, not only OCD, but also a big cynic, I thought there is no way.
This is all recorded.
a-
This is quite interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Documenting. Keep going.
I thought there was no way a wine would taste different in a different glass. Right? I mean,
Which I believed you, by the way.
and so I have done now to date 4 different blindfolded tastings with varietal specific, and every single time the wine tastes better in a glass that's specifically made for that varietal.
And why? Because it focuses the fragrance, or it allows it to breathe more or less, or whatever, get more or less air.
Yeah, pretty much all of the above. Each wine has its own different, I don't know, characteristics or parameters. Like
some react to air better, some don't want as much air, some need to open up and breathe, as they say, some want to be more contained. And
That's a fun holiday challenge. I think that you should put that on part of our notes from the show, because I think that would be a great game. Because I literally challenged you, and I didn't think. I'm like, there's just no way that the glass that you put it in is going to make the wine taste any different. And it actually does.
And I think you have a certain brand or certain type of wine glass.
Yeah, it's a certain glass.
So there are Riedel.
Riedel.
They're one of the probably the primary providers of they may even be the originators of the varietal specific.
Shout out to Riedel. Is it Riedel or Riedel?
A Riedel.
Riedel, okay.
Ooh, I have this at home.
Yeah. So here's another Riedel story that's related. So we're getting back to, I'm going to get there. So you hold the glass not by the glass, but by the stem. Some people are by the base. It's personal preference. I like the stem. But you've probably noticed in the last few years that there are stemless glasses. So
my wife actually likes those.
Yeah. So I will use. So for me personally, I'll use those if there's no other option. I.e., if I have a plastic cup or a stemless, I'll go for the stemless. One of the problems is, of course, there's no stem to hold on to, so you're forced to hold the glass. But at least it's glass, so that part is good. But
what about plastic, Bart?
Yeah, plastic. Only
that's a tough one.
I'd almost rather drink out of the bottle, but I have been known to drink out of a red solo cup as needed.
It's the holidays. You've seen it all.
Yeah. Anyway, so the origination of the stemless glass is kind of interesting. I learned this at the Riedel specific blind tastings. So I believe it's the generation of the grandson of the Riedel family who created all the Riedel glasses. Moved from Germany. Where Riedel was from, double check, yes, Germany. Moved into a New York apartment, had his glasses, tried to fit him in the small cabinets. And
my goodness.
The glasses don't fit. So he goes back.
I need a solution.
Has a solution and creates stemless glasses so they fit in his New York apartment.
Oh my
of course, because if he goes, if I have a problem, there's more people that also have the same problem.
That makes so much sense. I always wondered how that came about.
Yeah.
And so then so last thing on glasses, and Paul, you're gonna try the plastic.
Don't do it.
I'm gonna bring out some plastic for you. No, I just thought in case, because I can only drink
That's
a
what
little of this.
I may
have to pour out some of these here just as I taste.
Paul, you're not pouring out your wine.
Well, if anybody wants to, I got a little bucket.
So that's not happening in this crew here.
Okay.
I'll drink it all instead.
All right.
So the last thing on sparkling wine or champagne, I don't know if you've noticed, but there has been a trend to go away from the tall flutes to a more not quite like the glass we have here, which most people won't be able to see, but these are full glasses, but more like a white wine glass. Again, for the same reasons you said, Paul, it's less for the ambiance and for the visual of the bubbles going up and down, but more for the air inside.
Let's talk about one other thing here. And big argument I always have at holidays: open up the wine, let it breathe. No, just grab it out of the fridge or just yank it and pour it here. Most people just want to pour it, and it's like
you opened them before the show opened.
Yeah,
started.
Got to.
So I almost without exception will open wine. If I can, an hour or so.
An hour. Oh,
wow.
Now, so
what's a good time frame rule of thumb? An hour?
So, again, we'll go to varietal. We go to how old the wine is. So, whites you can open pretty much right before. Younger wines, like especially whites, you can open right before. Older wines, especially reds, will benefit from some air. Yeah. And then that goes into also decanting. People have probably heard or seen beautiful decanters that allows air to come in. And again, in a blind tasting, there's a significant taste difference.
But come on now, Paula goes out and parties all the time, so does Letitia. You guys never have been anywhere. You've never gone anywhere where people didn't just open the wine and start pouring it. Come on, tell the truth.
I'm sure it happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
bars,
most people just open it and pour it.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't prepare it.
So what are we drinking now, Bart?
So this is a dry Riesling. As I mentioned, it's from Santinez Valley, Santa Barbara County. And so originally the origination of Riesling comes from Germany or the northern France, Alsace. Mm-hmm. Riesling has a reputation of being very sweet. but they have a full range. There's like 6 different levels, and we're probably on either the driest or the second level. And
dry means less sweet, right?
Correct.
Less sugar.
Riesling is also next to Champagne, which I didn't bring any today because we focused on it last time, which, as you all know, everyone seems to know, that's my favorite go-to.
Yeah.
So, by the way, any holidays, anything you want to eat, Champagne can go good. Everything, all day.
I have a question for storing it. Can I change it just for 1 second?
Yep.
What would be the temperature that I would want to store this Riesling? Can I just throw it in the fridge? Can I put it on ice?
Yeah, there's some controversy on that. I like my white wines on the cooler side, so I do put them in the regular refrigerator. So I'm getting them down in the 50s, probably.
50s. So it's crisp.
Yeah, but truly to get the full
crisper, then would make a crisper flavor to it, or
they're
like an apple almost, yeah.
Well, this you'll find with this, you're tasting a little pear, a little bit of apple, more green apple. But the correct temperature is about 65 degrees for white wine to get the full flavor.
Because if you chill it too much, then it closes it up like a flower. It doesn't have the same aroma and fragrance and stuff, right?
Correct.
So we've talked about Fess Parker before, and so I'm just wondering, is there something specific you love about Fess Parker in general?
We got to get Paul a little closer to the mic. Yeah.
Hold on here.
And why
my Fess Parker question. So I was just wondering if there's something that Bart loves about Fess Parker as a winery and how they produce their wines.
Sure.
And while you're doing that, I have a second question, because I was going to ask the same thing. Fess Parker is kind of it's not a super high premium brand, although he's well known in the area, and I think, as you obviously agree, it's more of a. I thought the wines would be unattainable that you would bring in here. That's an attainable wine. That's not the.
Look at you. You think I'm a wine snob?
Yeah, well, because look at your background. You're only going to drink $500 bottles here and stuff. Yeah,
you drink good wine.
So at the end, it's all personal taste, and to Tish's point, I drink good wine, and the red wine we have is going to be a higher price point. But so to answer multiple questions,
and I'm going to add one more to the same one. It's what's the price point of the Riesling that we're drinking right now?
Yeah, it's about $25-$30.
Okay,
right. So that's something you could see at or at High Times or something. Or whatever.
You'd be hard pressed to find a Riesling. You can find them, but to be much more than that, it's just not an expensive varietal.
Okay.
So to get to the Fess Parker, that's someplace I've been going to for almost 20 years. And although it does have a celebrity name, they've really, really good quality winemaking. And they focus on areas and the varietals that are near and dear to me, which are more the Burgundy style, which are typically Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. That's kind of their flagship. They also do a great Syrah. Now, that happens to be all in the area. I happen to have another wine. The next wine we're having is from the same area, a different winery.
Can I give you a shocking thing? I'm going to test. This was done to me early in our show today. I forget how quickly we forget these TV stars, these movie stars. Fess Parker, I grew up with. Bart probably grew up with. I'm a little older, so I remembered the shows that he was on. I'll bet these two young ladies couldn't even tell you what Fess Parker's claim to fame was.
I would love to have an answer for that, and I don't. But I would love to hear it, Paul. Come on,
I'm just
give
shocked.
it to me.
Well, he was Daniel Boone on TV for a million years, the TV series, and before that he played Davy Crockett in all the Disney
Davy
stuff.
Crockett.
Davy.
So, and
Crockett.
he passed just a few years ago. He would be at the winery, lovely
Really?
gentleman. Yeah, in his older days.
How neat.
Oh, that has
signing
out.
autographs, so great. But his son and grandchildren are other winemakers, and hey, what the heck? He was able to, they do a great job, and their winery is beautiful. So there's a lot of wonderful things about it.
So can I ask another question? So as we're approaching the holidays, my favorite part is not only are we drinking a fantastic wine, but what food would this really complement when we're preparing
you've
our
read
holiday?
you've read the show notes here today.
Well, that's my favorite part overall. I want to know what will make this wine even better.
If you don't pair it with the right food, and I see this all the time, the wine tastes great, and then they have a dinner and it's not so great. The food kills the wine or buries it or whatever, vice versa.
So I think that's all true, but I think there's also to my earlier point, you're not eating all day, right? So you're going to get to someone's house, and usually we entertain.
Family's house, yeah.
And what are you going to drink while
cheese
you're
and crackers.
snacking cheese and crackers, or what are you drinking while you're waiting to get to dinner?
Yeah.
So that's what I would use Riesling for. That would be your white option for that.
Okay.
I would do that,
Cheese
or
and crackers.
or champagne, or sparkling wine to be more
What would
technical.
be another, like, what's
How about
specific?
Sauvignon? How about
What's-
Sauvignon Blanc?
Hold on, Paul. I want to be very specific
Okay.
on the wine that we're at. So, like, what are foods that would actually complement it? So, like, you're saying, like, the cheese, the crackers, anything else that would bring out the flavor of this
So
wine?
one of
This
the best things about Riesling, much like sparkling wine or champagne, is it's the easiest wine to pair food with. So it goes
All of them. It
with
would blend with
almost
all of them.
You know, vegetarian, white meat. I would probably not do this if I was having a heavy steak. There's not going to be any benefit to
Got
that.
it.
But as
Something
you're
light,
you're
snacks.
arriving for Thanksgiving at someone's house and you're looking for something to do or to drink while you're waiting
Or
for
Christmas or New Year's.
or Christmas and New Year's. We have
Yeah.
a couple holidays coming
Yeah.
up. But I think it's the great kind of a starter for the white option. And
Got
where we
it.
live, it's typically warmer, and on the holidays, we typically have nice sunny days. And
yeah.
Right.
for me,
Right.
some of my wine choices are based on what the weather is, and if it's
Oh,
warm
interesting.
outside,
It's cool, crisp, and it's
Yeah.
refreshing.
I
never heard that
I could
before.
see why you factor that in. That makes sense.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
because it's cooler and
Now, how about some of the other traditional kind of everyday, the Sauvignon Blancs or Viognier or something? You can pour some of those today, or are those just similar kinds of starter styles?
He's
So
ready
tho-
for the next one.
yeah, he's ready. He's like, hey,
He
when's
is.
the
He's
next
like,
wine
okay.
coming?
Move this along here.
Are you wanting more of your wine here?
I mean, we
Paul?
poured
Or
you
are
more,
wanting-
Paul. What's
Oh, you
happening
poured me
here?
more of that one? Oh, I can't.
Absolutely.
Oh,
It
my-
says feed the producer.
I gotta
It
run
said
the
right
rest
on
of the
notes,
shows here today.
feed
Here.
the producer.
I know.
Okay.
I'm trying to follow directions here.
I was up to the next one here. All right.
All right,
So
Bart.
that's the sound of everyone tasting the wine. Okay, so
What about dinner? What if
all
we're
right,
going to
so
jump
leading-
into like a
so-
holiday meal?
all right, if we're talking about we have Thanksgiving just around the corner.
So what if a traditional family's having turkey and stuffing and cranberries? What would I serve at my table that I would get 5 stars from everyone? It would be a great tip. Like maybe, and then what we're going to be drinking today as well.
Perfect. Well, part of what I brought today does correlate to a Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, fantastic.
And also correlated to my sommelier test. And I will tell you that although I got the answer right, I did get a little mark that I could have done better
Oh, my
from my
gosh.
master sommelier. And I went into when
I'll bet
I
that drove
love
you
how
crazy
he said
too.
that. He
You-
said,
you-
I got
Sticks in
that
your
right.
memory.
And then there was an area of improvement, which that's all he focused
You will
on.
never
course,
forget
right?
that one little
course.
comment on that.
Forget that I got it right.
Most people are like, hooray, I got through the darn thing. He's like, that one little comment. I'll never forget that moment.
So sorry.
So when he asked, as we were going around, he says, "Oh, and then this gentleman's going to have a traditional Thanksgiving." I don't know why we had different things, but I said, "Well, so I qualified by saying I have 2 options. If your guest would like a white wine, it's a turkey. It's going to be turkeys are typically buttery-ish, like a Chardonnay, a nice California buttery oak Chardonnay would be great. If on the other hand he wants a red option, Pinot Noir would go great because of the cranberries, etc." And right before I got to Pinot Noir, he goes, "You only get one." Boom. So I'm like, okay. So I didn't even get like Pinot
I
Noir
like
out.
options, so you're
Yeah.
okay.
You confuse them, you lose them.
Yeah.
So on
That's true.
my test score is like Pinot Noir would have been a better option. Like, tried to tell you. Anyway, so to answer your question, so for the early courses, like maybe it's everyone does things different. If you have a salad course or charcuterie, Riesling is great. A Sauvignon Blanc, a Viognier, Paul. Not many people know of that wine. It's a more fragrant white wine.
I like Viogniers,
originating from the Rhone Valley.
What would be one that you can reference? That you would like.
So,
Viognier.
so both Fess Parker, Demetria have great Viogniers.
Okay.
Rhone Valley, there's a bunch of varietals. A bunch of winemakers there.
Now we're not talking about the Rhine, which goes through Germany and other
Rhine,
places. The Rhone in France.
In France.
Right.
In France. So I personally am not a huge fan of Viognier. My sister loves it, so when I get them in wine clubs, I just give them to her and we swap out. So
that's
she happens to love it.
Nice.
So any of those 3. And then when the main course comes, I think I always have both Pinot Noir and Chardonnay on the table.
Yeah.
People can just whatever they want many times.
As a follow-up from our show today, will we have some
Will we have
wine?
discounts for the wine here?
No,
codes
not
or anything?
discounts. Will we have actual, tangible, like, types of wine and maybe a couple suggestions.
You just want it all spelled out. You just want, I'm going to go buy these 3 wines and I'm a hit.
Sometimes I just want to be told exactly what to do because at the end of the day, I want to have a fantastic dinner and I want to pair it and I want everyone to be super happy. And you have great tips, and I'm always pleased. So it would be fantastic if our listeners that are following you can also follow your tips.
But it depends on the food, so you got to tell them.
That's what I'm saying.
If
so
you have
scenario, we can talk about what we're doing today. Like if we were doing turkey cranberry stuffing, what would pair with that? What would be a great white and a great red, and then also what would like this.
So
Riesling.
That's a great point. I would encourage everyone to check out our Wine Wednesdays on our social posts because we will.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Because we will post.
I'm going to check it.
A meal. We'll post pairings. We'll post pairing options for.
So you're
going
to do Thanksgiving specifically.
We'll do that first.
What day can I check this out on? Do we
Ladies
have it
and gentlemen, Bart has just
it's Thanksgiving's
on the
like
spot
in 2 days.
tailored our social media posting plan. Now we are doing specific meals on Wednesdays. You can check them out.
Right.
I will let my team know ASAP.
Says our PR.
That's called pivoting.
And here we go.
This is a marketing plan.
All right, last question before you move on. Sauvignon Blanc. My wife has moved into. I never thought she'd like Sauvignon Blancs. I don't think she did for a long time. Another really light white. What do you think about Sauvignon Blancs?
So you are talking to a non-Sauvignon Blanc guy.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to qualify that. So Sauvignon Blanc from France is called Sancerre, and that's from a region in France. I actually really do like that. Pretty much anything from the New World, especially, and this is my personal taste, so this is not meant to offend anybody, but from the hotter areas, the warmer areas like California and New Zealand, which is very popular for.
Real popular.
I'm going to give
Blanc.
a great positive plug for New Zealand wine in a moment, but for the Sauvignon Blanc, it's just too warm, and it makes a Sauvignon Blanc. And some people like this, but very grassy and bell pepper, and some people love that, and that's just not my style.
And that's what they are up in Sonoma too. There's lots of Sauvignon Blancs, and they have that grassy, peppery kind of flavor to them. But Australia's huge. That's their.
So I'm just going to slightly correct you. The Sauvignon Blanc is going to be more Napa, and Sonoma is going to be more of the Chardonnay.
Okay, all right. That difference just going over the hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Napa is going to be more of your Bordeaux style wines, and then Sonoma is going to be more of your Burgundy style wines. Okay. But for those who like it, I wouldn't pair it with the turkey course if you're for Thanksgiving or if you're having that for any of the other holidays. But for the salad or so forth, for people who like that, it's a great choice.
And you didn't put my other white wine that I used to always get my aunt to drink here, which you're going to throw up when I say because it's really cheap everyday wine, is Pinot Grigio.
Now, there's very good Pinot Grigios. Again, not my style, but there are very good ones. There's another great white wine that if you hear the name, you're probably going to think the same thing, but it's a very classy, when you find a good one, it's a Chablis.
Yes, right.
Back probably in your parents' day, Paul, that came out of a box.
Yeah, right. That's all they drank.
But it's true. I mean, that's what my mom drank, Chablis out of a box, and so I was always really against it. But Chablis is the northernmost point of Burgundy and the Burgundy zone. And it's actually a Chardonnay grape, but they don't use any oak in the fermentation. And it's
what do they do? Steel barrels then? How do they avoid the oak?
Yeah, steel barrels, and it has more of a gravel kind of texture or tone to it, and it's much more crisp. And if we're traveling to Europe or if we travel to like French Polynesia, which is a French province, it's very available. It's not as available here in California, at least at restaurants. It's a great choice.
Okay. All right. So there's your whites, ladies and gentlemen.
So we're almost that. It's part of the whites. So now, at least here in studio, we are going to go from, and hopefully you'll see the difference in color and in taste. We're going to
if I were to
Chardonnay.
have,
and we're not going to wash out the glasses and change them and everything. Oh my goodness!
So the best way to wash it out is to pour the next wine in it, swirl it, and you can toss it, and then or slug it.
Wow.
I'll toss it because I got to work all day here today.
Okay, so toss that. So Tish, you had a question.
No, go ahead.
So look at the color difference. See how this one is like.
Yeah, there's a big color difference.
I like Chardonnay, so I'm not going to be biased. I'm going to be biased.
How did Chardonnay become the go-to wine? Was it?
Sorry,
can't see.
Can I tell you one quick story here while you're pouring?
I'm not pouring very good.
I got a chance to meet the great Emelianenko Grgic, who I believe was the first winemaker to win an award in France. when everybody thought California wines were just box wines and would never compete with the real French. In a blind tasting, he did win back in the 70s. And he really perfected this kind of, with lots of what has malolactic acid in it, which makes it have a buttery flavor to it, this buttery Chardonnay that became California's go-to signature. Maybe overdone here.
So all that is exactly correct, and it's a great winery. And I've seen him. I didn't meet him, but I saw him at the winery a few years ago when I was there. And the whole malolactic fermentation and the heavy oak, which was a big California thing, is really starting to kind of reduce.
They sort of did it like everybody was just threw it in there, and that's a California wine. And that became the signature California wine, maybe because it was the first to win awards. But heavy oak, heavy malolactic, buttery Chardonnays. Oh my goodness, there's millions of them.
And in what we're drinking now, it does have some, I would say, some butter-esque texture to it, but certainly not heavily.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is
this has a lot of butter. I feel like I'm eating buttered popcorn here. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's not that bad.
But I mean, it's from the last
compared
one,
to a Riesling. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So this is
it's
a 2017 Chardonnay by Demetria.
Demetria.
Tell us
Which
about
is
this wine.
also, it's a beautiful winery in the San Ynez, a wonderful view, a great place if you're visiting to have, bring a picnic. They're very accommodating there.
Mm-hmm.
And then very similar wines to the Fess Parker, but they actually are doing more in the Rhone as well.
Can Chardonnay grow anywhere? Because they do grow it everywhere in California, or is it better grown in certain types of climates?
It's going to be more in the cooler, so it is grown in San Ynez. It's less grown in Paso Robles, less grown in Napa, more grown in Sonoma, so a little closer to the ocean. Demetria is a relatively new winery. It's a Greek family that came in I think within the last 10 years and have done a really, really good job. I like this a lot, and I think it would be great with.
What would I pair it with, Bart?
Definitely, this is a Thanksgiving if you're going to have a traditional
or buttered popcorn
turkey.
If you're having buttered popcorn. No.
That actually, the best pairing of a buttery Chardonnay is buttery popcorn.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was
good
just
job,
kidding.
Paul.
All right.
Good job.
I got one.
So, Paul, you can order this when you go to the theaters that serve
Yeah,
wine.
witness.
Amen.
This is.
Thank you so
I
much,
have
Melissa.
never.
I know.
Or sneak it in your bag.
I have never heard of this winery before, and this is really spectacular. What kind of price range is this at?
This is in the 30 to 35.
Okay. Again,
So
you're not hitting me with. I thought you were going to bring in this unattainable stuff that I can't. What's the?
You haven't outpriced
Give me a
yet.
couple of really high end California. I can't think of. Hanzel, is that one?
So Tish and I had one at an event that we bought. Maybe somewhat unknowingly, that ended up being like $150 a bottle
That was
for
amazing.
a Chardonnay.
It was amazing.
Benedict, that was a Sonoma.
Okay.
That was
a beautiful lady on the cover.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so
Benedict.
delicious.
I still have a bottle or
Okay.
two left. Have you
I have
drank all
one
yours?
bottle left.
Yeah.
So this is relatively affordable, and this is maybe for not everybody, but $30 a bottle. That's not out of.
It's really delicious. So, what would I pair this with? What kind of food?
So again, I mean, for the holiday time, if something
Holiday, but in general.
just in general. This also is in my opinion, this is you don't need a food. I meant to reference this earlier, and that
You just like to drink. No
to
food
your
needed.
I meant to reference this to Paul's point about complementing food, and yes, a lot of wine does complement food, but there are certain wines that I think you can drink without food.
Yeah.
i.e., rosé all day. But there, and I think Chardonnay is also a wine that you can drink without having to pair with the food. In my opinion, and the California Cabernets, I know a lot of people like to drink them by themselves. I personally cannot drink them without having a big steak or something.
Because it's got a lot of acid in it, and it needs
and
something
the tannins that
Right.
kind of the meat helps to kind of cut it and offset it. But
I
on the
could
other
drink
hand,
this all day. I could drink
Okay,
this.
well,
for
I've
sitting-
heard a wise tale that you would have whites or a Chardonnay with a fish. Am I wrong?
that is a
Like a white-
really
white
good
fish?
general rule of thumb. Chicken
Okay.
or fish, like
Okay.
like a white meat, white wine,
Got
very
it.
very general. But
Okay.
what you accompany the food with, or how you prepare the food, like for instance, I drink Pinot Noir with chicken all the time.
Really?
Okay.
One, because I think we're going to get into Pinot Noirs next, and I'll tell you the different variances of Pinot Noir. But there's a Pinot Noirs that are light enough in body that I think it still goes well with chicken, and or if you do chicken with I don't know, with a pasta sauce or some sort of a red sauce.
Okay.
So or whatever accompaniments you might have with it.
So could I mix this during the holidays? So say, could I have this during the appetizers then? Again, it's light, snacky. It doesn't really matter really what I'm eating.
I would say yes, as
Chardonnay?
long as it's not too heavily oaked. And I think, unlike Paul, I don't think this is overly buttery. So I could drink this all day.
I didn't mean to over. It just was such a giant contrast from
To the
other
Riesling.
wine. Yeah,
for sure.
And I do. This is maybe because I grew up in that era, the 80s and all this stuff. I love this kind of style wine. I understand why it put California on the map.
Christmas
I
present
love
right now.
this wine. This is my style. And I know it's been overdone, overblown, and they're paring it back, and there are fewer and fewer. But this is, to me, quintessential California wine. A little oak, a little bit of butter, spectacular flavor. I can drink this all day.
So I will share a story that almost qualifies as one of my most embarrassing moments, but I'll just embarrass myself again.
This is a good show.
Yeah. So we've talked about the oak and the butter, and which has been reduced, but at its peak, when Chardonnay was really, really buttery, there was a particular group of the population that really enjoyed this kind of wine. And this is a term that I did not create, but my master sommelier, and I actually announced this term while we were doing a client wine dinner, and I didn't realize how many people actually loved the wine, but the term referenced really heavily oaked, buttery Chardonnay, and he says, well, people who really like that they call it cougar crack.
Oh, boy. See, this is why he invited the publicist to the show.
That's
now
right.
I got to PR this situation.
That's right. We'll edit that piece out here.
I just
crack.
knew.
Really?
Oh,
It is kind of cougar crack, though. It's the older, wild woman looking for the...
Okay. Well,
I mean,
what's
what
next?
would this be without a little humor, right?
So we're going to move on to the next wine.
Yeah, let's do
Now,
that.
can I ask? I'll preface this with another quick story from Mike Gergich, the early one of the 2 or 3 famous early California winemakers that put California in the map. Mondavi, Gergich, some others. I met him in a wine tasting. This is like the late 80s, early 90s. He was still alive. And funny little man, a little beret. And so I had some of this really special buttery from some special year, 84 or something or whatever.
It was a good year.
It was a good year, and I'm holding on to this. Is that a good year? Is that when you were born?
That's
probably.
when I was born.
And I'm
You're
drinking
welcome.
wine. And I'm drinking this stuff, and I go up to him because I was so concerned. I didn't have wine cellars. I didn't have controlled wine. You know, how long should I hold this? What I would do? What should I do with it? I bought cases of this stuff because I loved it so much, and I wanted it to last. I said, "What should I do, Mike?" He said, "You must drink it."
Let's move on to red.
Okay.
Okay, well,
And then
hold
let's
on.
also talk about maybe other
Can
meals,
I? Yeah, I
other
was going
holiday
to say,
meals.
can
Yeah.
I? So I'm not a giant traditional turkey stuffing kind of fan. I know, it's crazy. But what if we mix it up a little bit? So what if we have like prime rib or tri-tip? What can I mix? What can I serve my guests?
Not
with
the
that?
last wine, because it would get overwhelmed by
Well,
it.
no. So Bart said I can do that for the appetizers and when people walk in. But what does it look like for the main dish? People are sitting down and they're going to have tri-tip.
It's red,
What?
baby. You can have
well,
some
no,
red.
I know it's red, but what red would
Okay,
really
so-
complement that?
There's part of it's going to be personal taste, and part of it's going to be obviously driven by the type of food. So
Or enhance the flavor of
yeah,
the food.
so like that better be a sigh of like
This guy
pure
knows-
joy.
This guy knows what he's talking. Yes,
Did
guy.
you try the Pinot? The Walt?
Can I
Pinot?
just stop you for 1 second here?
Right?
He's an ecstasy
Screaming
over there.
I got to
I
tell you,
love this
really.
wine.
So we've had 3 wines here. Okay, a Sauvignon Blanc, a Riesling,
Riesling.
which I wouldn't have expected Bart to ever do. I thought he would put his nose up at all Rieslings and that kind of stuff because it's not as
I actually-
Paul, what am I
sophisticated.
gonna do with you
no,
right
Paul,
now?
I actually agree with you because I thought the same thing with Bart.
I didn't think he'd
before.
go there at all.
But he loves Riesling.
That was really drinkable
good
and really
call.
nice.
Yeah.
Then he hit my sweet spot, the old California's buttery Chardonnay, and as night and day different as that was from the first one, this is night and day different from that one. This is talk about this. What makes this so spectacular? Is it more depth of flavor? Is it more? There's more to this. It's got lots of stuff going on here.
Okay, let's clarify what the heck we are even
Yeah.
drinking
Oh
right
my
now.
God.
So this is Walt 2000. what is
should
it?
be 16, I believe.
2016?
Yeah, 2000.
I never even heard of this one.
I actually think that's
15. It's a 15. Yeah, 2015
Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir.
So what makes this so great? And the other thing I'll say before you launch into that is I went to a Pinot Noir event in Brentwood a year or two ago. And I walked away thinking, I don't know what Pinot Noir is. Some of them were light, some of them were heavy. There isn't I know what California Chardonnay tastes like, oaky, buttery. I know what Sauvignon Blanc tastes like. It's light and, grassy or whatever here. I don't know what Pinot Noirs taste like. Are they still experimenting and trying to find what it is, or is it just a freer range of styles?
You're experimenting.
So there is actually a range, and I was referencing that earlier. Pinot Noir has light body, and then it has much full body. I am a big fan of the more full body, which is what we're drinking now. So Walt Winery is the kind of the sister of the Hall family wine in Napa. So Walt is in Sonoma. Catherine Hall is married to someone Hall. I forgot.
She could marry me. I'll get divorced. This is good.
So her maiden name is Walt. So she named this wine after her father and her maiden name. So this is the wine they made that comes out of this particular one's out of Gap's Crown, which is an amazing area for Pinot Noir. So pretty much any
Gap's Crown. Where's that? I've never even heard.
That's
of it.
One of the AVAs, one of the wine areas in Sonoma.
AVAs.
Yeah, American Viticular
which
areas.
just to break it down real quickly, the powers that be have broken down, and this is an area because of the soil, because of the climate, because of everything. It grows a tendency. Wines have a certain style or a certain flavor profile that comes out of all this, right?
Right. So there's particular areas that have the more heavy, full body, which is what I really, really like, which is what this is. Other brands that I like are wineries. So Walt is amazing. Costa Brown is great, which is in the same area. Patinay, which Jim Fox is an ex-pro hockey player. He is kind of the brainchild behind it, but it's the same area, so the wine is coming out very, very similar.
You may have changed my mind because I've tried to like Pinot Noirs for years, and they're all over the place, and I have not found one I like. This may be the first one I've ever really liked.
Until today.
Yeah.
So
you've blown Paul's mind.
You blow my mind.
Mind blown.
I feel like
mind
that.
blown.
We need like a cheer.
Yeah, where's the confetti and glitter again? What's happening
need something here? Woo!
Okay, there we go. Blew my mind.
So, and I'll tell you something that's kind of blown my mind. And I promised that I would come back to New Zealand, which is I know is a beautiful place. Tina and I and Tehan are going to go there in about a year to go visit. They're most known for their Sauvignon Blanc, which I've already discussed. However, the South Island of New Zealand is coming out with some amazing Pinot Noirs that are just like what we're drinking right now.
I had no idea. Because most of the Sauvignon Blancs are in the North Island. There's two big islands, and most of them are grown in the North Island, which is warmer, and the South is colder.
Yeah.
More
Pinot Noir, if you've, for anyone who has seen the movie Sideways, there's a whole big thing.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to get back, Tisha, I'm going to circle back because Merlot is an amazing wine, and it's going to answer your question here in a moment.
Food, yeah.
Yeah, but Pinot Noir was a big thing in the movie.
What can I say?
So anyway.
Amen. Enough said.
All right.
I like wine.
So we've talked about the kind of the different bodies. So when it comes to Pinot Noir, there's particular regions like Gap's Crown, Sonoma. Pretty much anything in Sonoma is going to be more full-bodied. Another area, and until New Zealand came around, about the only area that I thought I would like Pinot Noir from, other than this area, was Willamette Valley, Oregon.
I was going to say that's what they're known for up there because it's colder and whatnot.
And Chardonnay, so it's more similar to Burgundy in France. So pretty much anywhere you go in the world, they're mimicking the old world.
But I went to the Willamette Valley and I tasted all these but like Sideways, and I've been up to Santa Barbara where they were and stuff, and none of them wowed me. This is maybe the first one I've ever had that really wowed me.
We're here to please Paul.
Stick with me. Stick with me, kid.
Man,
oh my gosh,
you hit me. You said Pinot Noir. I'm like, next.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. So, Tish, you asked the question, hey, what if I'm going to do something less traditional, or maybe it's another holiday, we're going to do some like heavy red meat.
I just want a nice dinner. Let's talk about if it was a prime rib or tri-tip.
So you definitely want to go with more full body. I mentioned earlier that I wouldn't drink a Cab just by itself, but Cabernet Sauvignon with a big red meat like that would be amazing.
What would be one like one specific that you think, I know your taste, that you think it would be fantastic?
Yeah, so one of my favorites is from a California wine is Groth, Groth.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
They
Is
make
there
a great one.
specific year?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to drink one this year, you want to go at least back to probably 2015 or older.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is
And
it
that
true
way
that
it's-
reds have to, you got to hold them a while to really have a mature, whites are mature quicker?
That's exactly where I was going. Is
Yes,
it mature?
that is true. There is depending on where the wine is from, your old world wines will last typically much longer than the Californians. I'm not exactly sure the reasons why, but I mean, there's European wines that could 30, 40 years old that are still drinking well right now.
Isn't that the tannins, though? The tannins sort of wear off over time. And
I was going to ask one more question on that. Is there a duration of time that, say there's a special wine that I love, 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 and then I just keep it? At what point is it too long? How do I know duration of like enjoying it, letting it age, and then it's just met its max?
Part of it's going to be the varietal. So Cabernet Sauvignons have a long duration. You can
Okay.
keep those longer. But there's a second part of that. There's
When you
other
say
factors.
duration, sorry, I just want to be more specific. You know me. I like numbers like 7 years.
Well, you can hold
3
it 10 years or
10
whatever.
years.
20, 30, 40
Yeah,
years.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's how you hold it. I think that's where he's going.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So it has to be the right temperature. It has to be stored with a. I don't
Keep
know
the
if you can see
cork
what
wet,
I'm doing, but the
yeah.
cork down so the cork
Facing down.
doesn't get corked and the cork doesn't like evaporate or into the wine.
Because then it opens up and then it breaks down and the wine.
Hold on a
air gets in
second.
there.
Wait, hold on a second. So my wine fridge at home is straight. Should I have it be tilting down and then
Oh, it
having
has
the cork?
to. It's got to stay. The cork
Oh,
got to
that's
stay
it.
wet.
Hold on a second. No,
Point
wait.
here.
Hold on
Put a little
second.
like thing on the back so it.
Your wine
So it
fridge
lifts it
has
up.
them flat. It's got to
No,
tilt.
your
down.
wine fridge probably has a slight tilt. You
Oh,
don't-
does it? I
Yeah.
mean, I just
It should.
have it
Every
for it.
wine fridge would have to.
But it's
you don't want the
tilted.
cork to dry out. If the cork
Right,
dries out, then
right.
it breaks down, the air gets in, and it's a mess.
Okay, you have to understand, like the listeners and myself, I don't know this. So this is great information. We don't know. So how do you store it? You keep it at
a slight, just so
degree.
the cork is wet.
The cork is
Yeah,
wet.
so it doesn't need
and
much
that
of an
way it'll
angle.
last longer.
Correct. So yeah.
So I have a
no
food
idea.
question that I'm going to interject here. So I don't eat meat. Haven't for years. I love dairy, but I don't eat dairy. So typically during the holidays, I make a pasta dish, and the sauce is made from butternut squash that's pureed with garlic, and I always put in grilled shrimp. What
Wow.
wine would you put with that?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a Jeopardy now. Ding, ding,
I
ding,
know.
Ding,
Yeah.
ding,
I
ding.
trust no one more than
Ding,
Bart, so
ding,
I am
ding,
asking
ding,
this
ding,
question
ding.
to him.
That's
So,
a rough one.
I think a Pinot Noir would be great there. I think a Grenache, which is a red, which is
okay.
a lighter, less full bodied.
There's a wine you never see anywhere, Grenache.
South of France is where it originates from.
I
I think
know,
that
but
would
here-
be a great one.
Go to a restaurant and order a Grenache.
And rosé all day, baby. I think her
I love
rosé.
it. Now I have my 3 suggestions for this
See?
meal
This
that
is-
always
This
debuts
is so
this time of year in my
helpful, Bart.
household.
Can I
This
be
is
the only
great.
one in the audience who has a little bit of wine knowledge who's shocked that you even bring up the word rosé? Because that was like Chablis. That was my parents' box kind of wine. Rosé, Chablis, all that stuff.
So you need to you got to break out of that old world.
Blue Nun, whatever.
Now,
Eating
trust
your
me,
thing.
it
Age.
it was not easy for me to come out and say these things.
Yeah, right. It's coming out. Rosé is not something most wine snobs say, oh, please, let's have some rosé. That would be like
Actually,
they laugh
no.
at you.
The wine snobs and the wine professionals
They know.
these days, they know. Yeah.
So the people who are pretending to be wine snobs like me, you say rosé. Please.
Another great one. This is less known. This is in the most southern area of Burgundy, but a Beaujolais. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a lighter red, but that would be amazing.
Where would you find
Okay.
that? What region?
Most southern part of the Burgundy region of France.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I want to make sure we have all these things going on. So, Tish, back to your thing. So, I also think a Zinfandel, a red Zinfandel, would be great because it's full-bodied, big, heavy tannins that would help cut through
I'm
your
not a fan.
tri-tip.
I'm
Oh.
a huge Red Zinfandel fan. Oh, my gosh. A
So if you don't like
Ronfeller
it-
Red
yeah.
Zin. Oh, my
Paula,
gosh.
Paula, you and
I'm
I
gonna
are
buy
in
you a bottle.
sync here.
Change
yeah.
your life.
Okay.
So let me stop you for 1 second here. You hit my favorite of all times. I love Zinfandels, especially the ones
Macy
from
in our
Northern
office likes that,
California
too.
that have been around for 100 years, these old vine Zinfandels. And Zinfandel is one of those wines they really cannot determine where it came from, right? Zinfandel The best Miljenko Grgic would tell me was that it's somewhere from what used to be called Yugoslavia. I forgot what, as it's all broken up, what part of Yugoslavia it's from. But is that correct? Zinfandel, as they've tried to chase it back, it appeared as a vine. It was given a name. Prohibition wiped out most of this stuff. They long since lost where this stuff came from. But as they've genetically tested it, Zinfandel seems to go back, at least according to Miljenko Grgic, somewhere in the Balkans.
So there's also something called Primitivo.
Yes, right.
Genetically, they're probably all related somehow, somewhere. Paso Robles here in California is a big producer of Zinfandel, and Los Olivos, Santa Ynez.
Up in the north, around the gold country, and around where the original gold strikes were, up in Northern California. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
The last, Tish. Hey, how are we doing on time, Paul?
I'm open. We'll stay here all day if you want to stay here. I have a show at 4, so you can go 2 hours if you want to go here today. Here.
All right. So hopefully people are still
hanging in there.
We probably lost
super interesting, though, because I think these are great takeaways, no matter what level you are with exposure.
I so appreciate your knowledge and your willingness to come in here. We normally do a half-hour show. We're up to an hour. You take whatever you want here. This is a great time.
All right. So there's another wine that I want to make sure gets the proper credit for the right time, and that is Merlot.
Yes.
So Merlot, ever since the movie... Way to go, Tish. I'm proud of you.
Let's just get a round of applause for Letitia Berbaum right now.
That's one I got to go more.
All right, so Merlot was a great wine until it
good.
From a PR standpoint, it wasn't when the movie Sideways came out. Mm-hmm. So there's a movie, and then there was a book. So for those who have seen the movie, they know, and I forgot the lead character's name, but he said, "No way, I'm never doing Merlot," and he hates Merlot. And so the country or the world took that as Merlot is a bad wine. Merlot is not a bad wine. It comes from Bordeaux. It's an amazing wine. If you read the book, the reason he doesn't like Merlot is because his ex-wife that left him loved Merlot.
Oh, that's it.
So
always a woman.
Ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth?
So I am a huge fan. I will go for Merlot over Cabernet Sauvignon any day, hands down, whenever.
Over a Cabernet Sauvignon?
Yeah, I've seen you choose Merlot.
Which is the classic?
Yeah.
Over a
What's your favorite Merlot?
Dark chocolate.
What?
That's what it's called.
It's called dark chocolate?
Yeah.
Where do you find it? Who makes it?
I will
never
be
even heard of
looking
it.
for this tomorrow.
Yeah, it's from Napa, and I haven't got it in a while because I always look for.
Does it have any
Pinot
sort
Noirs.
of chocolate characteristic to it? Or
Well,
is it just
Merlot in its characteristics it kind of has like a chocolate undertone.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually is great with chocolate. I would choose
Interesting.
that over. I would choose that over a cab.
What year?
Gosh, you guys are killing me
Years
here.
are tough.
this
Forget
year,
about
no, what do
years.
you do? We can ask. We feel comfortable.
Years.
So I go 2015, 2010 to 2015 probably. And so also Merlot is one of the everyone has heard of Bordeaux. So
Right.
Bordeaux. So who here thinks that Bordeaux is just Cabernet wine? No hands raised?
I kind of did a little bit.
Indifferent.
I kind of did a little bit.
You guys are just afraid to put your hand up.
I guess I
We're
would
not
have
sure.
thought, yeah.
Okay, so here in
It's
California,
the French version of Cabernet wine, yeah.
yeah. So in California, you have a Cabernet. It's pure Cabernet, which is probably one of the reasons that I don't tend to go straight for that. In France, if you get a Bordeaux wine, it is a combination of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and then Cab Franc. And then you have left bank and right bank. I'm getting super nerdy and technical. So on one side it's more Cabernet based.
have
On
that
the
on
other
record.
side, it's more Merlot based. I go for more right bank because it's more Merlot based than it is Cabernet
Right bank
based.
of the Seine River, is that
I'm
what
like,
you're
what is
talking
right bank and left bank?
Oh,
Well,
river,
right-
banks
Oh,
of the river.
got it.
Banks of the river. Now,
Yeah.
let me
Good
throw
question,
that.
Tish.
Let me throw that. Now,
I wasn't sure either.
if they're not confused enough, the way they categorize wine in Europe, in the old world, is different from the way they categorize it here. They do it
Ooh,
by a
interesting.
region, and they do it by varietal. There, it is different, right?
So each region has different characteristics. There's like Grand Cru, Premier Cru, and that's in Bordeaux. Burgundy has their. That's Burgundy. Bordeaux has theirs. Champagne has theirs. Everyone has different characterizations, but they do rate them. And when you're in the elite area, like the premier cru, then you're going to get the top dollar and so on.
But they don't categorize wine by varietal. They don't just say it's one. I mean, a Bordeaux can be a blend.
It's by well, again, it depends. In Bordeaux, it's by the village, and then Merlot. And then in Burgundy.
So let me ask you the really hard question. I've never come up with an answer for this. We're all, if you think you're a wine snob at anything, you're only going to drink a varietal. I'm going to drink Cabernet. It's 100% Cabernet. But there are blends that you can buy at every winery where the winemaker says, no, a little of this and a little of this. I think it'll be drinkable today and it'll taste better. Are you a blend guy, or is that just for the masses?
I go blend any day, hands down. Yeah. Which is more like a Bordeaux. I'll do a blend over anything. I just got introduced. I know it's been around for a while, and I'm on a list to be on the allocation Saxum. I'm not trying to plug it in, but I'm kind of plugging. It's out of Paso Robles,
and there's so little that they have to give out a certain amount to certain people.
Correct. Super expensive, but a great. And it's like 8 different, like Petit Verdot, Merlot, Zinfandel. It's an amazing blend.
Can I pre-order a Zinfandel through you? I'm placing my order.
What's the Argentinian varietal that they used to blend so much? Malbec. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite often. It's rarely do you see a Malbec on its own, but it seems to be a common. If they are going to blend, why is Malbec a good blending wine? Great.
Some people my sister, my stepdad, they love Malbec by itself. I don't really care for it. It's more of a cutting wine to me. It's really high in tannin, but it just works great in the blend.
Okay, I have another question. It's completely off your notes question.
Yeah.
I enjoy great salads, and sometimes I have chicken, sometimes I have fish. Rarely I'll have like a steak with it.
Right.
What would be a wine that I can have at dinner? Now, typically for me, I'll do like a champagne or a Chardonnay, my personal preference. But in general, what will bring out the flavor of like a salad or greens?
Boone's Farm.
Oh, Paul.
Going back to the Davy,
another PR situation.
Going back to the Davy Crockett, Daniel
goodness.
Boone analogy. Do they even make Boone's Farm anymore? I don't think.
I
don't even know what that is.
No, you don't need to.
I mean, depending on if you want red or white, I mentioned the Beaujolais, which is harder to find here, but if you go to some of the higher-end wine boutiques, the Beaujolais would be great.
Like an everyday salad. I want to have a delicious dinner at home every day. I'm not just talking about the holidays. Something I can enjoy. Maybe
so my
affordable,
two go-tos, and I
wine.
eat a lot like you. My dinners are always a salad, and if I'm going to have wine with dinner, it's either a Pinot Noir or Chardonnay.
So it depends if you want a white, you would go with a
If
Chardonnay.
it's hot outside, I'm going to do a Chardonnay. If it's cooler, like we've had the last few days, I go Pinot Noir.
Oh, so the weather dictates your choice of wine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Puts me in the mood.
Huh. Okay, that's really great.
So the last thing on yours, a Syrah. I don't want to spend too much time.
Did we talk about if I were going to have an Italian dinner?
So let's go there. So Syrah, if you're going to have the big, heavy red meat again, I think that's another kind of with the Zinfandel and the Cabernet.
Yeah.
So if if you're going to have a big Italian, my brother is married to an Italian, and so we go on Christmas Eve. We have she does a big lasagna with all the big red meat.
You're speaking my language.
I know.
Not the meat part, but the lasagna and the cannoli and all that good stuff.
Hey, hello.
I know. I'll make you a cheesecake. Don't worry about it.
Are you? I never asked. Is Paula Italiano? I don't even know.
I am half. I'm Sicilian. That's why I'm spicy.
Interestingly enough, I got to stop you for 1 second since we're doing this in slow motion here. We have several Sicilianos that come in and do shows here, and they constantly remind me Sicilianos are not Italianos. This is
scandalous.
Well,
scandalous.
they're not
Yes,
Paula.
we are.
It is. I mean, it's part of Italy, but this is a different heritage. It has Greek. It has North Africa. This is a different breed of cat than.
Yeah, I see why they say that. I am still Italian. Don't let anyone fool you.
Thank you. All right. So,
any other final tips, Bart? You want to give us some wines?
So
you want to make sure we
Italian.
address?
So one of my favorite nights of the entire year is Christmas Eve when we go to my sister-in-law's because she is a great Italian cook. She does their lasagna. She'll do big meatballs. That's my one night where I eat like lots of carbs.
I'm good. I'll wait.
More confetti and glitter just happened when you said that.
Hey.
So. And I will also tell you from a sommelier training, like Italy is the Achilles heel, at least for me, and most soms will say the same thing because there are the regions are really small and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of varietals and regions. But if you're having like the meatballs and the red meat and all and so forth, so Barbaresco and Nebbiolo.
I should have brought something for us next time.
And those
year.
are wines you just do not see. Why do that make it into the common wine? You don't see Nebbiolo, you don't see Barbaresco.
I've never heard of these. Tell us more.
Yeah, these are obscure varietals only in Italian.
I don't know. Where are these
Explain.
normal? Can I find them at my local grocery store? Where do I find these wines?
I think it's where we live. It's regional. If you go to just like a supermarket, it's going to be California wines, right? Because we happen to live in a wine region.
My supermarket has everything. It's just broken down by region.
Then go to the Italian region. You'll find those wines there for sure. Those are some of the primary. Chianti is another one.
Chianti.
Barbarello, Barbaresco, and these are all really big Cab Zin style wines. Big, high tannic. My favorite of all the Italians is called a Super Tuscan. Paul, do you know what a Super Tuscan is?
When you showed me the list here before, it was the only one I'd never heard. I know the Tuscany region of Italy, but I'd never heard of that as a variety, as a style of wine. No.
So I mentioned earlier, I like blends, right?
All
if I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to go blend.
Yeah.
So a Super Tuscan takes something that's referred to as international varietals, and that's like your Cab, your Merlot, and so forth. So it's a blend of Cab, Merlot, Zin, and then it brings in also an Italian like either a Nebbiolo or a Chianti or something. And so the blend of that, I think, that's my favorite. If I'm bringing wine.
Spaghetti and meatballs or lasagna.
Now
Super
again,
Tuscan.
Chianti is one of those banished wines. White Zinfandel is one.
Bring out the flavor of my wine, of my food.
But these
Super
wines
Tuscan.
that have been that have been trashed through the years because my parents Chablis, White Zinfandel, and Chianti. Those all sound like cheap, just 60s wines.
No.
So Chianti
age doesn't have anything to do with it.
No, I mean, from a period of time when they just made cheap wine. Right.
So Chianti is in the Chablis era where there was a bad marketing of it.
Right.
But the Chianti wine is amazing, and if you get a pure Chianti, it's fantastic.
I would never even try one because I would think it's just cheap wine, right? Because
So
that
it's
was
so
the
interesting.
image I had.
That's what I enjoy being around.
That's what I enjoy.
When I go to places, because I'm always surprised. Because it doesn't necessarily mean you have to get the most expensive wine to pick great flavoring and pairing. Because
That's the truth. Yeah, that really
I
is
am
the
the
truth.
person at the grocery store or wherever I'm shopping, and I will look up the points, and I will say which will match.
You sound like me. That's what I do.
The maximum amount of points.
Do you know how many texts I get from her like, hey, should I get this wine for my dinner tonight?
It's 93 versus 94 points.
And I love having wine that complements the meal. And it doesn't mean it just has to be natural and people enjoy and they're having a great time and it's just effortless. And so if you have a great wine that pairs with it, and I have learned so much from Bart, and that's why I ask these questions, because these are great takeaways for everyone. And if you can enjoy, say you're having great company, and then if your meal is just so
what if
much
it's bad
better,
company? Then just give them some junk.
your meal
In
is
the
so
box
much
wine.
better, and then the wine makes the food taste even better, and you're enjoying it even more. It's just an even better experience. And so I am so thankful for you, Bart, always sharing with me, and I'm thankful for you sharing with the audience this information, because it's great. It's great knowledge.
So let me ask.
What hostess doesn't want to be the hostess with the mostest?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
come on now, right?
know.
Like, we all want to have these incredible parties. So, yes, we're all ears, Bart, whatever you'd like to share.
And so let me ask you the hard question, because this is what I hear a lot when people. I have a little bit of interest in wine. I know a little bit about it. I never went and studied it like Bart did. And I start to tell friends or something, and they're like, oh, you're just one of those wine snobs. I just drink what I like. I said, good. That's really the ultimate compliment here. Drink what you like. And then experiment and expand your horizons. You know, once upon a time when I was a kid in the Midwest, I ate Kraft cheese. That's all I thought was cheese flavor. Then I learned there's a million types of cheese out there, and it expanded my mind. What do you tell people who say at the end of this is too snobby, too sophisticated, too much work, too much effort?
No, I don't think any of the things he said are too snobby.
No,
We're
he's
just
done
talking
it.
about
I'm not saying the way he's done it, but
Yeah.
wine in general has a connotation too sophisticated, too complicated, too difficult. I'm just not going to go there.
It is overwhelming. I do have to say,
Yeah,
when
right.
you walk into a store and there's all these regions,
Billion
all
wines,
these
billion
flavors,
choices, billion.
you don't know where to go.
So,
Paula.
So here's what I was going to say before the expert chimed in is put the ego aside and ask questions, which is what we're doing today. We're asking somebody who knows. Don't be afraid to ask a question.
And most of these wine, even like Vaughn's Pavilions, they have like sommeliers or like wine experts walking around. Just this is their life. This is what they love to do, and just ask them. And I realized, because I was once overwhelmed as well. It's really tough. But at the end of the day, and I get this so often, like it must be so difficult for you to choose a wine, and how was it? I'm like, at the end of the day, it's like, just pick what you like.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, so I bought some couple of very inexpensive and moderate priced wines, and one that was more higher priced. But at the end of the day, it's just what we like.
You shocked me what you brought. You brought Fess Parker. I wouldn't think a certified sommelier would ever go near Fess Parker. You brought in wines that you tell me that you like Chablis. You tell me you brought in a dry Riesling. All these are things that usually my perception of wine snobs and wine experts would stay away from.
We're blowing your mind, Paul.
You're blowing my mind.
Mind
Paul,
blown. Hashtag.
You haven't met
on this post.
As our clients might know, my favorite emoji is boom.
We're going to cheers to that. Cheers.
Yeah.
Happy holidays,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Yes.
So grateful for all these incredible tips. And Paul, we can't do this without you.
Yes,
well,
Paul.
I appreciate that you bringing in. I'm willing to open the doors and let. I hope people have stuck with us the whole time, because it really is an amazing compendium of choices and stuff. And that's the idea, is to open your mind to it, not to overwhelm you and say, "Oh, I feel stupid. I don't know. I'm going to stay away from it." Jump in. The water's fine.
It's fun. It's fun to explore.
The water's fine, but wine is better.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Bart, for sharing all of your amazing
this was so
knowledge.
much fun. Thanks, everyone, for who has tuned in, and we'll
talk for 2 more seconds here, because I got to get your music up here.
All right.
And happy holidays.
Happy
if you
holidays,
have questions,
everyone.
feel free to send in questions to podcast@bartzandbergen.com, or you can tweet us. You can connect with us on Facebook, Bart Zandbergen. Send us a DM on Instagram. Find Bart Zandbergen or Letitia Berbaum. Otherwise, we'll be back.
Somebody
next
tweeted
week.
in once, what's the number one question people ask you? So you obviously studied at an intense level wine, and you've shown today you know a great deal about it. What do ordinary humans like us ask you?
What's your favorite wine? Honestly.
Yeah, right. And what would you say to them? You say champagne is just kind of a go-to thing that works with anything.
We
Champagne
didn't
and
even
Burgundy.
talk about bubbles today, and that's my favorite. And literally, that's one of my favorites because of you, Bart.
Yeah.
And I've been exposed.
What
to
do you
so many
hate?
great
What do you stay away
experiences.
from it? You say, no, that's just not me. Not that
I
it's
feel
bad,
like we
but
need
you
a whole
don't like
other
it.
podcast on bubbles.
I think we do, yeah.
I know.
I'm volunteering to come in again.
I
just so
will
you know.
too.
What do you hate? What do you not like?
There's no wine that I hate, but as I mentioned earlier, I don't go for Cabernet Sauvignon Blanc, a New World.
And as the world becomes more sophisticated as to wine, the Chinese market is huge. Other areas are opening up. What do you see? What's the hot wine? What's the new wine? What's the wine that's coming that hasn't gotten enough attention? Pinot Noir, maybe? I mean, Pinot Noir is certainly one that has gotten a lot of attention. It's on every wine list, but I just can't tell you what a Pinot Noir tastes like. Sometimes they're light. I can't depend on it. I go and order it. Oh,
It's
that's too
preference,
light.
though,
That's
don't
too
you
heavy.
think, Paul? This is preference.
Well, because there's certain styles we've come up with. We know what a Chardonnay, California Chardonnay, is going to taste like, predictably. You know what a Cabernet is going to be big. You know what a Zinfandel is going to taste like. It's got lots of tannins and other things to it here. What's the wine that's coming up? Is there any hot new one that's coming up?
That's a great question. And straight from the publicist, you have to tune into @Bart Zandbergen on Instagram. Check in on our social media.
I'm trying to get it all in one session here.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank
We'll see
you.
you next week. Cheers.
Tune in next week for the latest edition of the Zandbergen Report, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Catch up on our recent shows by visiting bartzandbergen.podbean.com. The Zandbergen Report is also available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Interested in being a featured guest on our show or have a question you'd like to hear us answer? Email podcast@bartzandbergen.com. Bart A. Zandbergen, CFP, and Letitia Berbaum, AIF, are registered investment advisors with Optivest Inc. and registered representatives with Gramercy Securities Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered by Optivest Inc. under SEC registration.